So if there's anything that I can advise anyone is to make sure you apply to more than one place. Don't do what I did. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Apply it to more than one places. Okay. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Shaun in Science. I'm Shaun and I'm in science. Okay, in today's video, I am finally going to be talking about my application process. So for those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. I'm Shaun and I am currently a research assistant in stem cell research at the University of Cambridge. But I recently got onto a Astra Zeneca funded program at Cambridge, and I want to share my application process experience with you. It's been a journey and I hope that what I can share with you is helpful. I plan to give you like the full detail breakdown of my application process to Cambridge. I applied to other places as well and I got offers from other places, but I ultimately chose to go to Cambridge. Yeah, so hopefully this video helps, and if I miss anything out, like just put it down in the comments below and I will address them. So let's get started. So to start, let me introduce myself formally, give you a bit of background, and also share with you why I wanted to do a PhD. So as I said, I'm Shaun. I am a research assistant in stem cell research, and I did my undergrad and master's. Actually, it was a integrated master's degree in biochemistry at King's College London. I graduated in 2018, and when I graduated I wasn't sure what I wanted to do next. I was at that point quite intimidated at the prospect of doing a PhD, and also like the application process just seemed so intense and I wasn't really ready for that. And also I wanted to explore a bit further whether or not I felt suited to research, because it wasn't until my second year in uni that I was even aware that research was a thing. I know that sounds crazy, but I feel like it's not. At least for me, I wasn't exposed to that. For me, I thought if I wanted to stay in science, I would have to be like a doctor or something like that. I didn't realize that I could stay in research, I could do research. So it wasn't until my second year that I was aware of that, and because of that I was able to choose a research project in my third year and then stay on an extra year in my master's year to do another research project. But at that point I was like, oh, perhaps this is all like a honeymoon period. So I wanted to explore a bit more to make sure that I felt suited to a career in research, which is why I applied for roles as a research assistant that still in an institution. I've got videos that I've done before that I talk in a bit more detail about all of this. I've got my university series, and I've also got a video where I talked about how I got into Cambridge as an RA, so check those out. Yeah, so at that point I didn't feel ready to do a PhD, and it wasn't until maybe a year and a half into my role that I felt like I'm ready to do a PhD. It would push me further intellectually, and also it would actively extend my career perspective, because that's another thing with academia is if you plan to be in academia for long term and you don't have a PhD, there's only so far that you can go. Now, one thing that I didn't share with you last time is that I actually already applied for a PhD once before, but I wasn't successful with that. In the last application year, I only applied to one place, and that was because I was so scared that I was gonna get rejected. Literally, the fear of rejection forced me to only end up applying to one place because of the timelines or the deadlines for applications and stuff like that. It wasn't until Christmas of that year that I was like, okay, I'm just gonna bite the bullet and do it. And the program that I applied to was the stem cell program where I work. The deadline for that was the 7th of January, and that year I actually got through to interviews. I just didn't get through the interviews. So moving from that, I was disappointed, but I felt like, okay, at least on paper I look good. At least, you know, my CV looks good, my experience looks good. I am a candidate that people are looking for. So that for me was encouraging in that sense. So I thought to myself that, okay, next time I'm gonna apply to more places. So if there's anything that I can advise anyone is to make sure you apply to more than one place. Don't do what I did. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Apply to more than one places, okay? And then the next thing I want to talk about is actually my research interest, because one thing that would come up a lot, especially when you start applying to different places, is you trying to talk about your research interests. I think it's very important that obviously you don't need to like know, oh, I want to do this specific project, but you want to have a rough idea of what you're interested in. So I personally am interested in working with stem cells, but in particular development. I want to understand how stem cells are able to move away from the pluripotency state. What are the underlying mechanisms that are facilitating this process? That is the bigger picture. Obviously the project that I'm going to be doing with my PhD is then tackling a smaller part of this, but it's still tying into that bigger picture, that general research interest. So I think it's very important for you to have an idea of what you're interested in, because also that would allow you to decide which programs you want to apply to. Because I knew that I had a keen interest in stem cell research, the programs that I applied to, I knew that I would be able to work with this model system, and that is why I felt inclined to apply to them. I just wanted to lay all of those things down, and then we can move on to the nitty-gritty. So in regards to Cambridge, I applied to 4 different programs within Cambridge. As I said, I also applied to other places. So I applied to Francis Crick and to the King's College Advanced Stem Cell Program, but I'll be covering those in a separate video, which I'm going to be filming soon. So hold on tight to that. So for Cambridge, one thing I want to let you know, so don't mind me, I've got my notes and I've got my laptop here, so if you see me like shifting I've got my notes everywhere, and I want to make sure that obviously I am giving you as much information as I can. So in regards to Cambridge, please bear in mind that you do have to pay for applications. It was £70 for 3 positions, and I applied to 4 places, so I ended up paying £140, because £70 for the 3, and then because I had an extra one, it was then £70 for just that. Another thing to bear in mind as well is that programs in the UK, there are some funded ones and non-funded ones. I applied to a mixture of both. So the 4 that I applied to was the Welcome Stem Cell Program, which is the one that I applied to the year before but didn't get through. Then I applied to the MRCDTP program, which is across Cambridge, so that's across different departments, and then you're able to like pick specific projects that tickle your fancy. Then I applied to the MRC program at the LMB. Yeah, so LMB is the Laboratory of Molecular Biology. So I applied to that one. That was the 3rd one. And then the last one that I applied to was just a PhD in biochemistry. So the Department of Biochemistry at Cambridge offer PhDs. Now this one is not funded. I need to mention that this one is not funded. The other 3 that I mentioned, the Welcome Stem Cell Program, the MRCDTP program, and the LMB program, they come with funding, or you are applying to compete for funding. But the PhD in biochemistry does not come with funding. So because of that, you need to have another application on top of that to apply for funding. So the PhD in biochemistry only gives you a conditional place. So it's like, okay, well, your CV looks good, la da da, you in principle have a position, a PhD position, but if you don't come with your funding, then we can't confirm a place for you. So I just wanted to mention that. I'll give you an overview of the outcomes of the places that I applied to. So I actually was unsuccessful for the 3 funded positions, which is hilarious. And then I got funded by Astra Zeneca with the PhD in biochemistry PhD program. Cool. Now for all the applications, you need to provide a CV, transcript, and if you are international student, you have to also show proof of doing like an English exam, something like that. I didn't apply as an international student. I am British, so I didn't have to do that. All I had to make sure I provided was a CV, transcript, and of course, depending on the applications for each program, you'd have like your personal statements that you would have to supply, or research proposal. For the Welcome Stem Cell Program, for that one, you just need to provide a personal statement, and I will go through personal statements, how to write personal statements and stuff like that in a separate video, especially for the program that I was successful in. So as I said, I did also get offer from Francis Crick and stuff like that, so I plan to do like a separate video, just a general video on how to write personal statements, how to address, you know, the prompts that they've given you and to be successful with that. So yeah, I had to provide a personal statement, your references, make sure you have at least 2 references for your applications. Also for the MRC-DTP program, so the MRC-DTP program was slightly different in the sense that you had to apply for the position and for the funding, but only 2 or so positions or projects that could be funded. But then you have a choice of like over 20, and that's across different departments. That's across the genetics department, the Stem Cell Institute, biochemistry, all different departments, but only 1 or 2, no, 2 or 3 would actually get funded. So you're not just competing for, you know, the project, you're not just competing for the project as a student to go potentially to the lab, but you are also competing for the funding. So like literally, I think I sent off my application and I was rejected. Like that was the first rejection I got in this application round, which was quite demotivating, demoralizing, because it was the first like response I had. What I should say about deadlines. So because there's either a funded program or a non-funded program, there are separate deadlines. For most of the projects, the applications was open from late September, early October, and most of them closed on the 3rd of December 2020. So that is because if you're applying for funding, so for example the PhD in biochemistry program, because it didn't come with funding, I also had to apply for funding, and a lot of the funding bodies, their deadline is earlier than the deadline of the PhD program. So you have to bear that in mind and make sure that you are applying for that you are working towards the earlier deadline, because otherwise it's gone, girl. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's kind of the overview of the 4 programs that I applied to, and then I'm now going to focus on the AZ program, because obviously that's the one that I was successful for. All right, so for that one, because I was applying for funding on top of applying for a PhD place, I had to write a research proposal. Now, one advice that I would give to you guys is, you know, of course, once you know what your research interests are, you need to identify a supervisor. You need to identify someone that you would want to do your PhD with, someone whose lab you want to do your PhD in, and you need to reach out to them early enough, because you need to make sure you've established a meeting with them and you've talked through with them the potential projects, because you essentially are going to be writing your research proposal. I mean, I wrote my research proposal, but I guess some PIs may write it with you, but ideally you're going to be the one writing the bulk of it, because I mean, if you're going to be doing a PhD, you need to understand what the project is about, and this is kind of your first experience showing someone that you understand what the main goals, what the main objectives of the project is. I have vlogged my PhD experience, so like I've vlogged the interviews, I've vlogged the responses, all of that, and that's something I'm working on now, will be releasing soon. I didn't really vlog my stage when I was writing my proposal, because I found out the most intense part of the application process. So just a bit of background for mine. I've been working as an RA for about 2.5 years. It'll be 3 years by the time I start my PhD, and I'm going to be staying in the same lab that I've been working as an RA in. So because of that, I already knew my supervisor, and I was able to obviously have extensive meetings with him to really talk about a potential project. And Brian was, yeah, he and looking back on this, you know, I really appreciate the way that the approach that he took, where he really just kind of left me to it, to write. when I was in that situation, it wasn't enjoyable because it was so difficult to try and think about the objectives of the project, what the project will be about, why we want to do the project, what are some of the key questions that we want to address. And one thing that that I learned from that is that sometimes when it comes to a research project, it's not about you just listing experiments. So I'm going to do this experiment, I'm going to do this experiment, but it's about what questions you're trying to address. So basically your goal should be, okay, and what I've got these questions, and then break it down into simpler questions. And then when you bring in your discussion about experiments, it should be about addressing those questions, not just you making a list of experiments that you'd want to do. And it was a bit difficult for me to get my head around that, but I was able to, clearly, because it was successful at some point, eventually. So yeah, I had to write a research proposal. I got support from Brian, my supervisor, but his approach to it was to really kind of put me in the deep end. And as I said, as I look back on it, I am so grateful for that, because I think moving forward, it's a skill set that I have gained that would be very, very great for when I start my PhD. For the personal statement, you need to make sure you pay attention to the prompts that they give you, because they literally have told you what they want to hear from you, so you need to make sure you're giving them the prompts. I will let you know what prompts I was given for the application that I sent in. So for the Astra Zeneca one, you also need to provide a cover letter. So in the cover letter, they want you to highlight your research interest. Again, what I said earlier, you need to know your research interest. Again, you don't need to know it like down to the T, but you need to have an overarching idea of what interests you have within research, and then what you hope to achieve for the program. So this is specific to the AZ program. What you hope to achieve for the program, your career aspirations beyond the program, and why you wish to undertake this program at this particular department. That was the prompt that I was given, and you just make sure that you are really addressing those points and you're being as succinct as possible. One thing I want to really lay on is you need to start writing your applications, your personal statements, your proposal with enough time. You need to give yourself enough time before the deadline, so that you can have a lot of room to really come up with different drafts, get different people to read your statement. I got everyone and anyone to read my statement, because I could take notes from this person and kind of complement them to have like a final edit. Cool. So I sent that off by the 3rd of December, and yeah, everything was great, la-di-da-di-da. And then I honestly wasn't that sure that I was gonna get a response, but I was called to interview for the 21st of January, and I had 2 sets of interviews. When it came to interviews, I really struggled to kind of balance my time between preparing for my interviews and my full-time job. I think I got to a point where I was literally not in the lab anymore. I would come into work and I was just on my laptop working, reading, getting myself ready and prepared. AstraZeneca one was the one that I felt the least confident in, because I knew that the research perspectives of the company AZ was slightly different to what my project was going to deal with, because obviously we know AZ to be a very translational-esque company. They're the one that are providing a lot of the drugs and stuff like that. They're a pharmaceutical company, and in regards to how they tie in with academic research, one of their main focuses is generating antibodies or small molecule inhibitors. So I really was trying to find ways to adhere, to shift, to shape my project to align with that. So if you can, try and do stuff like that. Again, speak extensively with your project supervisor so that they can give you advice and insight on how to do that. So interview time. So because of COVID, a lot of the interviews were done, literally all my interviews were done online, remotely, and I don't know about you, but I actually really enjoyed that. I actually prefer that. I don't know if that's something we can be doing moving forward, but I feel like it really worked in favor for me, because when you are interviewing online, I mean, you can control your environment to a certain level. You can be in a space that you are comfortable in, just to lessen or reduce how nervous you are. So because everything was done online, you also save time on like travel and like being anxious on your way there and all of that. And also because of that, I was able to at least document my experience, which again will be in the vlog that I'm working on, so look out for that. With interviews, the interviews for AZ was split into two, so let me just get up the details for that. So the interview process will consist of two 20 to 25 minute interviews conducted by two separate 4-person panels, each comprising 3 biochemistry PIs and 1 AZ representative. The purpose of these interviews is to explore your research interest and potential based on your past activities, and that was the first panel, and your future plans and career vision, and that was the second panel. You will not give a formal presentation of either your past or future work. However, you should come prepared to discuss the facets of your past and future based on the questions you will be asked. The interviews will take place via Zoom video conferencing software, and the times of your interviews are given below. So I had my interview on Thursday the 21st of January, and it was from 9 to 10 essentially. In regards to preparing for interviews, there are like, you know, a set of questions that you would get. You know, why do you want to do a PhD? In the vlog, I will literally have behind the scenes of my actual interview, the questions that I got asked and the way I answered the questions, just as more insight to, you know, how you can address these questions.
As you know already, you'll have 2 interviews this morning, and the 2 interviews will be different. We're going to explore more your future plans and aspirations, whereas the other interview that you'll have next will look more at what your research background and past and achievements are. So just so that you know, there'll be a bit of a split in those terms.
Yeah.
We'll talk for about 25 minutes, and then we'll need to wrap things up so that we can go on for your next interview and the next interviews we'll have as well.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so let me just start off with, you know, I want you to think about the sort of research that you'd like to pursue, that you're interested in, and you know, I'm interested in what are the major questions that you think are important and interesting to you that you'd like to pursue in your research?
So,
where do you see this leading to?
okay, so I'm gonna be like completely honest. I got my AZ offer first. I had my interview on Thursday and I got my offer on Friday. And I think it's because obviously if you're one of the top that they like the most, then they're gonna send you an email quicker than those that are lower down on the list of preferred candidates. So yeah, that is kind of my experience with applying for a PhD at Cambridge. It's been a journey, and I really wanted to kind of share like the wins and losses, because I think sometimes when you just hear, oh, I got into Cambridge, like people don't always talk about the failures and talk about the struggles and the disappointment. So I just want to show you guys that it's possible. Obviously, you know, you've got to put in the hard work. I got like first class degree, I had experience, I knew that I was a good candidate, but compared to the last time when I only applied to one place, I literally spread my wings a bit more, and I increased my chances of getting an offer. So yeah, I just wanted this to encourage you guys that you can do it. If you are thinking of applying to Cambridge and you want someone to kind of like look over your personal statements or give you advice on personal statements, check out my SuperProf link. I have started a kind of consulting service. As I said, I've done this. I've applied to Cambridge not just as an RA but also as a potential PhD student, and I've been successful. So if you do need help, advice on how to kind of tailor your application, on how to like properly address and address the prompts that they give you for the personal statements, just reach out to me. Send me a reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. Follow me on Instagram, all of that jazz. I'm happy to help. Let's kind of get ourselves more represented, you know, in the big boy institutions and all of that. And with all of that said, I am gonna go. Look out for the vlog. I'm working on that. You're gonna get a lot more insight. You're gonna get literally the whole shebang. Anyway, I've talked too much. Let us go. Bye guys.